Everybody else is here, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're on part 2. We're going to go through errors for section 8.1. So we are on part 2 right here. All right. Here we go. Okay. Even though we do the best that we can do with getting a random sample and creating as little bias as possible and doing all of our data collecting correctly and doing our hypotheses correctly and getting all of our information accurately, we still can't be 100% error free, right? Like there's always going to be an error. So last chapter we talked about minimizing error. What's the thing that we can do to minimize the error? Up the sample size, right? Like I add more people to my sample because that's going to give me less of an error, all right? But still, we can't be 100% error free, all right? Another thing that contributes to error is your significance level, okay? So you talked about like what the fish value is, right? So it could be like 0.01, it could be 0.05, it could be 0.10, it could be any of these, right? And that kind of somewhat contributes to like your 99%, your 90%, your 95%, etc., right? Like how big are you making your target, right? Okay? And we said that it's not always the best to be 99% confident, right? Because a 99% confident is going to be like a wider range. So maybe 99% confident will say like, I'm 99% sure that you scored between a 40 and an 80 on the test. And you're like, great, well, that didn't help me a whole lot. Okay, I'm 95% sure that you scored between a 60 and a 70 on the test, right? Or I could be 90% sure that you scored between a 66 and a 68 on the test, right? Like I could be, like, I'm making these numbers up, obviously. But your window is narrower the less confident you are, right? Because there's still a chance, if I'm only 90% confident, you're like, okay, 10% chance that it could still live outside of that, right? Okay, so the more confident you are, the wider the range is and like that, okay? With that confidence level, we still have errors that occur, and here's what could happen, all right? When we reject the null hypothesis or fail to reject the null hypothesis, we could have 2 different types of errors happen, right? We have what's called a type 1 error, which is rejecting the null hypothesis when I shouldn't, okay? So let me relate this back to something that like maybe makes sense to you, all right? Yep, this is my example that's going to go with this box. So I'm going to use this to explain this box a little bit. So let's say H0 is innocent, H1 is guilty. Okay? If I reject the null hypothesis, if I reject this guy and circle this guy, that means you are guilty, right? Rejecting the null hypothesis means that you would be guilty. A type 1 error would be saying that you are guilty when you are not guilty, when you are actually innocent. That would be a type 1 error.
But if you fail to reject H0, you're just saying he's not innocent. You're not saying he's guilty, he's just not innocent according to your standards.
Correct. Because we don't have enough evidence to prove him guilty because you are innocent until proven guilty, okay? So this one would be fail to reject. So in that case, I am circling this one and crossing this one off. I am failing to reject, so I'm saying basically you're not guilty. I'm not saying you're innocent, but I'm saying you're not guilty, right? Okay? So this type 2 error would be not guilty when you actually are guilty. Okay? So one of those 2 things could happen, right? I could say that you're guilty when you are guilty. That's the correct thing that should happen. I could say you're not guilty when you're not guilty. That's a correct thing that should happen. Or I could say you're guilty when you're actually innocent. That fits into this box. That's a type 1 error. I could say that you're not guilty when you actually are guilty, and that's a type 2 error. All right. If we're talking murder, which would you rather have? If you put somebody into prison when they're actually innocent for murder, would you rather that thing happen? Or would you rather a murderer go free? Guilty until proven innocent. That's the way that you go. So you would rather have this one, right?
It depends.
Not this, but yes, this, right?
It depends if I'm the person.
Right. If you're the person, you're like, please here, right? Yeah? Like error on this side, right? Or if a family member is involved, let's error on this side, right? Like over here. Okay? Well, but maybe you didn't commit the crime. Maybe you're actually innocent, but we're saying that you're guilty, right?
Because what if you were on the side of the crime?
Right.
Or
Right.
there's-
There are like tons of people every year that are exonerated for like on death row that are exonerated because they find out through DNA evidence that they actually weren't even in the area at the time or whatever that the murder happened. Like it happens all the time. They have gone back through people that have gone through the death penalty, that have died by the death penalty, that they've gone back and said like, oh yeah, they were actually innocent because now we have DNA testing. And like, oh, the DNA from this woman that was murdered, like the person's skin cells that were underneath of her fingernails because she was trying to claw her way out of being murdered, whatever. We didn't know at the time wasn't his DNA because we couldn't test it, but now we know, but he's already dead because we killed him from
And that's why
being
you
in.
should play God's death.
I mean, yeah, so that's an argument, right? So for the death penalty or against the death penalty because a lot of people that are sitting on death row are actually innocent. I don't know. So which would you rather have if you had to choose? If you had to choose, both of them are bad, right? Like we don't want either one to happen. But which one would you rather choose? Let the murderer out, right?
Okay.
And then just let them kill again, and then they'll go back,
Is
right?
Their penalty,
Right.
Is their penalty like 10 years in prison, or is their penalty?
Usually murder is life. Usually murder is life, or the death penalty.
I
So
don't
they're
like
either
the
going to get life or the death penalty.
If you just committed manslaughter, they're not going to probably
Right. Manslaughter is different, right?
manslaughter's different.
Like, yeah, there's like murder 1, murder 2 is manslaughter, which is like murder 1 is like well, murder 1 is intent to kill. So it's all premeditated. Murder 2, manslaughter is like accidentally killed, kind of. Like you meant to beat him up, but it went too far, and like you didn't mean to kill him, but it's so that's where the thing lies. Like you have to, like the jury has to decide what their intent was, or whatever. Like that's the hard part, right? So if you have this going on, all right, now maybe you don't know which one you'd rather prefer. I don't know that I know which one I'd rather prefer because it depends, right?
If you keep a murderer out, then that's just risking the lives of somebody.
True.
Yeah, but if
Versus this one's the risking the life of that innocent. Well, also, but this one, if they were innocent, then the real person's still out,
Second one,
right? So regardless,
Still proven innocent.
right? Regardless of either one, you got a guilty person out, right? Because if the innocent person's sitting in prison, where's the guilty one? Out on the streets, right? So it doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to have a guilty one out on the streets, right?
But if you're holding that person,
I don't know.
So it's like, would you rather have
So you
a
have to
guilty
decide.
person out and kill an innocent person, or just have the guilty person out?
okay,
Right.
then you agree with
I don't know. Oh,
I'd
okay.
rather not kill
What's
someone.
cannibalism? Cannibalism is
Cannibalism would be like illegal disposal of a body or whatever. Like disposal of a body?
Well,
You're
it's
consuming it? I don't know.
cannibalism.
What?
There's like a more scientific.
Yeah, there's a different one, whatever. But okay. Yeah.
And
I
then
know.
first degree is most serious murder involving premeditation.
Yeah.
or willfulness.
Uh-huh.
Second involves intent to kill without premeditation, and then there's just manslaughter.
Oh, so manslaughter is below second degree murder.
Manslaughter is third degree.
Yeah, manslaughter is accidental. Kind of, yeah. Second degree murder is you,
So the manipulator
yeah.
doesn't have first, but it's not like premeditated.
But you didn't, yeah, they didn't plan it out, yeah. Yeah, whatever. All the things. Yeah.
Would self-defense be second degree?
Second degree wouldn't be anything. Like if they truly say that it's self-defense, and like you would have been, it was either you or them, like you get nothing. Yeah. And there's different laws right now. Like Nebraska,
You have to
people, you guys are too young to own like firearms or whatever, but like Nebraska is not a stand your ground state.
No,
No, Nebraska is.
It's not.
It's not.
you have to retreat first. and
Right.
retreat
So the deal here is, since Nebraska is not a stand your ground state, if somebody would come to my door with a gun and come into my house, I couldn't shoot them, even though they're on my property with a gun. I would have to retreat first.
Retreat 5 steps, get the gun, and then
Right.
go.
And then I would kill them if they come after me then, right?
You have to
Yeah, but-
prove you can't get out of it.
Right. You can't get out of the situation. Versus if you are a stand your ground state and somebody comes to my door,
Like Texas.
I could shoot them at my door, right? Because they came into my
I feel
property.
like
Now,
that would
now,
be-
even though Nebraska is not a stand your ground state, if I have a dependent in the household, so like the fact that I have children in my house, I wouldn't have to retreat. I could shoot that person because on defense of the dependents that I have in my
See,
house.
Here's the thing
So.
in Texas, if you went to Texas, like, what
We're
if
getting
a
really
person
off
just
topic.
walks up to the door and it's the middle of the night and it's dark? You don't know whether or not their intent is
Right.
Your own
Right.
choice.
Right. Right. Yeah.
at the
So they might try it, and like if you have a good lawyer or whatever, they would say like they had they were just trying to protect themselves, and usually
But then I
you'll
wouldn't-
probably be
I
okay.
wouldn't necessarily-
I don't know. We're getting way
I
off topic.
wouldn't wanna be the one to kill an innocent person if his intent
Right.
was to like ask, hey,
Well, no, she was.
well, yeah.
right, yeah. You only shoot if you know they're gonna kill you.
Anybody that's coming to their door.
I don't know.
Right, I'm
You
not
have,
saying
like,
they are.
for example, like yesterday, my boyfriend had some crack, like, person who go to his house, knocked on his door, and like started getting up in his face. He didn't have his gun or his knife or anything on him,
Yeah.
and he just kept getting closer and closer.
Uh huh.
And
Yeah.
he just got up and said, "Call the cops."
Right.
He got arrested.
Yeah. Yeah. So like if that was the case and your boyfriend did shoot him or hurt him or whatever, could he have gotten in trouble for that, or was that a self-defense thing? I don't know.
He would have gotten in trouble for it
Right, because-
he's not old enough to own a firearm.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a different component too. So, anyway, all right, we're getting off topic. But the deal here is, depending on which one you would like to lean towards. So maybe you would like to lean more toward this guy, like any error is bad, but if you're more okay with having this type of error over this one, you're going to adjust your significance level accordingly, right? So maybe you would say you would let in like innocent before until proven guilty. So like 10%. Okay, 10% is going to widen your range, right? So innocent lives here and guilty lives here and here, right? Okay, if that's the way that works. If you're okay with innocent and not okay with guilty, like wrongful conviction, you're going to make your window larger versus smaller according to that. Okay, so you're going to adjust your significance level. So if any of you were wondering, like, where do they come up with which significance level they choose? It's depending on which error they're more okay with having. Anyway, that was a big old to do. All right, let's do example 2. So we're talking about error, type 1, type 2 error. All right, so here is what we're talking about. We're talking about the likelihood of a baby girl happening, all right? So the chances of conceiving a baby girl greater than 50%, the chances of conceiving a baby girl equal to 50%. Okay, so we're going to talk about type 1, type 2 error. Type 1 and a type 2. Write these down. Okay, type 1 is rejecting the null hypothesis when it's actually true. Okay, the type 2 error is failed to reject H naught when it is false. Okay, so here's what this looks like. For this information, right? If we reject H naught and circle this one, we are claiming what? If we reject H naught, what? What do you mean? What are we claiming that? If we do this, we cross this one off and circle this one, we are claiming that what? Right. Reject H naught would be crossing off the top one. reject H naught, cross out the top one, circle the bottom one. That means we're claiming that the proportion of girls is greater than 50% when it's not. Do we see how this works? The proportion of girls, we cross this one off, we circle this one. We're saying the proportion of girls is greater than 50% when it's actually not. That's something we risk by doing that, right? Maybe our results are not concluded right, okay? The other direction, type 2 error, is fail to reject. So we circle this one, we cross this one off. What are we claiming there? Here we are claiming that what is true? The proportion of girls is what? Woo. The proportion of girls is equal to 50% when what? When it is actually greater than 50%, right? That make sense? So we're doing the wrong conclusion. We're doing the opposite of what the true results should have told us. Weird stuff. Okay? All right, let's go to the homework assignment. 9 and 10. All right. Null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis. Here we go. All right, here's what I'm looking at the second line here, the second sentence. It says the proportion of people who write with their left hand is equal to 0.29. Okay, what would H naught look like? P equals 0.29. H1, P is not equal to 0.29. Okay, so my type 1 error.
Is this not on the homework?
This is the homework. This is number 9 on the homework. Type 1 and type 2. Okay. Type 1 was reject H naught when it's actually true. Type 2 was failed to reject H naught when it's actually false. Okay, so we'll write out what that means in terms of left-handed people, right? Okay, so if I do this conclusion, if I reject H naught, that's crossing this one off and circling this one. What is that saying? Our conclusion is that we are claiming that the proportion of left-handed people is
Right.
what? Is not equal to 0.29. When? What? When it actually is. Does that make sense? We are concluding that this is true when this should have been true, right? That's one thing that's the type 1 error that is happening, right? Type 2 error is we are failing. Okay, so let me cross off my circles and stuff, okay? The second one is failing to reject H naught. So I'm circling this one and I'm crossing this one off. So if we do that, then we are claiming that what? The proportion of left-handed people what? Is equal to 29% or 0.29 when it actually is not. Do you see how this works? We could either say it's not when it actually is or say it is when it's actually not. Does that make sense at all? No? No? Yeah? Okay, all right, number 10.
Hang on.
Sorry. All right, good? Okay. No? You're still writing? Okay, H1. All right, I'm reading the second paragraph. The percentage of households with more than one pet is equal to 0.65 or 65%. So P equals 0.65. What's the alternative hypothesis?
Not.
not equal to 0.65. Who has more than one pet? More than one pet. More than one pet. You don't have more than one pet? Either of you? Oh, I can't see your hand. You don't have more than one pet? No? Jose?
I do.
You have more. Yeah. More than one pet. More than one pet. More than one pet. If you count your cows. No? More than one pet? Does anybody have no pets in here? Hey! Perfect. All right. Okay.
You don't have pets?
I don't have any pets. I mean, unless you count my husband or my children.
I think children.
I think children sometimes count. Yeah, they make more of a mess than a pet. All right. All right. So more than one pet is 65%. 65% of all people have more than one pet. That's according to this. All right. So my type 1. I'm just going to put 1 and 2. Type 1 error is reject H naught when it should be true. Number 2 is fail to reject H naught when it should be false. Okay. So I'll do the cross off thing, right? If I'm rejecting H naught, which one do I cross off? If I reject H naught, which one do you cross off?
Crossing off the first one.
We're crossing off the top one and we're circling the bottom one. So this is what we're concluding in this scenario right here, right? Okay? So we are claiming that multi-pet households is not equal to 65% when it actually is 65%. Right? We're claiming it's not 65% when it actually is 65%. Got it? The second one. Let me cross off my stuff. We're concluding the opposite, right? So here we're saying we failed to reject H naught, which means we're circling the top one and we're crossing off the bottom one. What are we saying when we do that?
It is 0.65 when it's
We're
not.
saying we are claiming that, or we're concluding that, we're claiming that multi-pet households is equal to 65% when
It's not.
it's not. Do we see how this works? Right? Like you have the two different scenarios. We could still make a mistake. Even though our conclusions lead us to this, we could still end up with error, right? What leads us to one error over the other? Changing this guy. Changing the value of this guy. Okay? Thankfully, we don't have to choose that. Going forward, they just tell you that. But now you know, like, oh, how did they decide that fish value? Well, they decided it based upon which one of these they would rather prefer
What's its actual-
to not happen. What?
What's its actual name? It's not fish. What is it?
Alpha.
You sure that's
Yeah,
alpha?
alpha. Alpha.
Okay.
It's an A. It's a Greek A. Yeah, if you guys are done with those, if you're done with 8-1 homework, I will take them.
Not.
All right. If you're done with 8-1 homework, I will take them. Make sure you have your name on them. Thank you, sir. I'll make a pile over here. If you are not done with 8-1, we're going to start 8-2 on Monday. So be prepared for that. Okay? All right. Goodbye.